Welcome to Ticket Volume, news and information for improving IT experiences. I'm your host, Matt Barron, and this podcast is powered by InvGate, a global leader in IT service and asset management software. Every week, I bring you IT leaders to share insights on service management, technology, business, and of course, we're doing it again. But before we start, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Now, let's begin. Welcome to Ticket Volume, Phyllis Drucker.
Thanks, Matt. It's so exciting to be back with you.
Yeah, exactly. You and I, you're one of the few people I've had on this podcast where we have been former colleagues and did some consulting gigs together. And I have a huge amount of respect for you too, because you always showed up. You always worked hard. I could totally depend on you. It really was a great experience working with you.
For me too. I can't even begin to tell you how much I learned about the digital experience design piece of the practice. You know, I'm always looking for that great user experience, but now I have some tools to actually use from watching you in action.
Yes,
so,
and
yeah.
I always tried to leverage your extreme amount of experience. You have just this wealth of knowledge, the decades of consulting that you have. You know, you've worked at so many different companies doing so many different things. How valuable.
Definitely.
And you've recently announced your retirement. So let's talk about that a little bit, because so many people on our podcast are either recently retired or coming close to retirement, and it's one of the reasons that I continue to have people on that are close to retirement or in retirement, is because we're losing this wealth of knowledge. We're losing these decades of experience, and I don't want to lose it. So what would you say to people just entering the industry or people that are in the industry now? Like, what is your perspective?
Well, there's two things. One of the great things about entering retirement is I'm not really retiring. I'm just not having a day job that gets in the way of me doing what I love doing. So,
Exactly.
You know, the one thing I would say is soak up what we have to offer, because we're going to be around for about another 5 or 6 years kind of doing this part-time stuff that we do, the writing, the speaking, but then you're going to be on your own with some of the newbies. Mm-hmm. So if you're one of the newbies starting out speaking, you're going to be needed. And if you're just coming into this industry, learning and training is lifelong. You know, we talked about when I said to Matt, I learned a lot from his sessions. I didn't know anything about digital blueprinting and journey mapping, but watching Matt do it on a couple of projects, I could now walk in and do that in a client site. I don't want to, but I could. So, you know, being able to learn from one another is one of the most important things we do.
Dude, you have hit the nail on the head. It's all about building that community and learning and growing from each other. That's why I love this podcast. That's why I love our industry. And
you've podcasted before. You've been podcasting for years, bringing it out into the industry for years, and it's great.
Yeah, I agree. And apparently I need to make a transition over to TikTok or Twitch, because I love that you're doing that. It's great to see. And if you haven't caught some of Phyllis's TikToks, the My 2 Cents series, definitely check it out. You'll learn something in the context of something else. And that is what I love about it. You know, you're making a sourdough bread, but you're talking about process consistency and how, you know, you need to stick with it or you're not going to get the same results. You're not going to have that consistency. And so you've got this, these decades of experience, and I've got some of those too. But what do you see as sticking points? How do you think we've matured and evolved as an industry?
I think we're now really conscious of process. We know we should follow best practice. We know we should be doing these things. But I'm still seeing us lag when it comes to both the user experience and what are we doing with that process. Mm-hmm. I still feel we need a little bit more connection with the end users and a little bit, I'm not quite sure how to say it, but taking us into the business, understanding the business and what we're there to deliver, and the impact of how we deliver it on their day. And, you know, I know we talked a little bit about incident management. You know, when I look at incident management in a company today, we're doing incident management the same way we did it 25, 30 years ago. We wait for something to break, and then we get really good at fixing it. Mm-hmm. And we give people all kinds of ways they can report that it broke. So we've improved their experience of how they can report it. They don't have to wait online at the phone. They can go to a service portal and report it, but they're still waiting for that tech to get back to them. And they're still taking their time to fix that incident. Now, what would happen if they didn't have the incident in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
What would it look like if there was a small problem on their computer and they got an email that said, we found a problem with your computer, or a text, we found a problem. You can either go to a locker and pick up a new machine, or you can tell us where you want us to ship it to. And then just have them hit a link, tell them put it in the locker, ship it to my home for your hybrid environment. If they say put it in a locker, they get a QR code, they go to the locker, just like Amazon, they scan it, there's a new computer, they leave their old computer there, done. How does that experience compare to having someone spend an hour looking at your machine only to tell you, yeah, the hard drive really is gone. We're going to have to get you a new machine. Go order one from the portal. Get your manager to approve it. Why? It's broken.
Yes. I love that. There's so many good nuggets in there. I mean, just removing the approval process, right? That, of course, that manager's going to approve it. They need their teams to be productive. And I love the idea of proactive incident management. John Layton's episode, this is what Nextthink and Brighthorse and QStack and all of the companies are trying to do, is to help people understand that you can be proactive. You can sense and detect and resolve without the user being involved.
But there's a couple things you have to do that people still struggle with. One is one of my bones of contention: configuration management.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do configuration management to know if devices are properly configured. And you have to have some level of monitoring and the ability to pull together monitoring, asset management, configuration management in your ticketing system. Maybe use a little bit of predictive intelligence or artificial intelligence, get the AI going there to say, hey, this is the health score of this machine. Oh, these machines, the health score just fell below a threshold. Now I can alert a tech to go look at why. Mm-hmm. And if it falls behind, we're managing by exception. If it's below the threshold, a human gets involved before it breaks. That's all.
Yeah. It's easy to say. And sometimes it can take years to actually realize this, right? Because you need that maturity in all of those processes, and then you start discovering the intersections of them. But you're right. Like, this is where we're headed. This is the cutting edge service management right now. Let's pivot a little bit and talk about ESM, because that's one of both of our passions.
Right.
And it's one of the most recent projects that you and I worked on together. When you think about ESM, what do you think is stopping people from realizing that?
Well, first, let's break down ESM as enterprise service management. And I'm going to do a little bit on the history, then we'll go into the question, right? Mm-hmm. So from a historical standpoint, I was involved in the idea of a shared service center way before ESM ever hit the market as a buzzword. Mm-hmm. It was shared service center in those days. It was the big buzzword. And what it really means is every provider in the enterprise delivering service either through a global shared service center or individually, but the same way, with the same tools, an enterprise portal. And where we start to get into it and you see the uptick in it is our service portals now are getting more robust. They're starting to go beyond IT, or people want them to go beyond IT. But that's just an enterprise service portal. It's not enterprise service management. True enterprise service management, everybody would have offer the same experience. When you use that portal, regardless of whether it's HR, IT, facilities, a print room, printing service or mail room, you would get the same level of experience from all of them. You would know when they're going to respond. You would know for the particular thing that you're requesting how long it should take. There's certain basis of service and support that you would get if it was a true enterprise service management implementation. So that means it goes beyond a portal.
Yes, this is that wisdom I'm talking about, because you can unify some aspects of service delivery and those interactions. But really, it is about that consistency, the expectations, setting them when the customers are coming in and then fulfilling them when the customers are done, right? When those transactions are done.
And understanding, is everybody meeting the mark?
Yes. Yeah.
For that customer experience.
Yes, exactly. And so when clients come to you or have come to you in the past, what do you tell them about getting started with ESM? Where do you see companies like getting started, adding in those other services? What is the onus? What drives that change?
Well, I think the biggest one you and I have worked on together, which is HR is now in a spot where IT was, 15, 20 years ago, where they're realizing they can't keep expanding the level of support they provide. It's not scalable doing it on a person-by-person basis via phone, company IM, because they can't track who came in first, what's on my list, who do I need to get back to, did I lose anything on a piece of paper on my desk? So it's like where we were before ticketing systems, right? So they want the advantage of the ticketing system, they want the advantage of the portal, and even more so, they want to take some of their more complex processes, like onboarding, which we worked on together, and make it easier for the new hire, the manager, and everybody involved in the process. So that starts to expand what IT has been doing out to HR. What you then start to see is, okay, IT and HR are here. Where do I go to get my desk fixed? My leg broke. How do I get a new desk? Or, my cubicle wall is falling down. Who do I call for that? Mm-hmm. And when people come into an organization, it could take months before who you call for everything that you're calling about, right? Every issue that you have. And then you find out that every group has a different portal.
Yeah.
So we give them a horrible employee experience because we're scattered all over the place. So I think the onus to take it beyond HR and IT starts to be, we want that one place for everyone to go. And the project I went to after the project we were on together was a global organization, and they had services for their parking lot. They had some leased cars, so they had leased car services if there was an issue with the lease. So they were starting to bring in things that were beyond IT. And of course, their biggest struggle is incident versus service request, because IT doesn't necessarily translate into all of those other areas.
Excellent point. Yes. The framework, the lexicon, the words we use to describe those units of work, they change from group to group. And that maturity is something that we kind of take for granted in the IT space because of our complexity and our early needs to scale. Now you see it in these other departments where they're needing to fulfill the human needs, the work from home needs. How do we scale and deliver those services without that common language?
And I think the work from home thing is going to push it way further than it's ever been pushed before. Mm-hmm. Because before you could walk down the hall to the mailroom if you didn't know how to contact them, right? You knew where they were. Or you could find the place where they do the printing. Just look for the huge machines. But, you're not doing that from your house. So you've got to have a single place you can go to contact everybody.
Yes. And it can't just be your manager. And now you can't just complain audibly and someone's going to hear you and provide some feedback. I mean, you could do that.
I can't log in. What am I going to do? Oh, I can reset get a password reset for you. Come over and use my machine.
So I think you're speaking, I think, in the future about SMOs, service management offices or organizations.
Yeah.
Give us a sneak peek. What are your points on that? What do you think about it? I would love to hear what that is going to be about.
Sure. So it has two pieces, and it'll be at Service Management World in November. But I've got some writing on the topic as well, up on my website, up on the various. My writing is all over the internet. But from a service management office perspective, when it was first introduced through ITIL, and that's probably not the origins of it, but when ITIL introduced it, the idea was that it would help provide governance for a service management adoption program, right? Or many would call it an implementation, but it's really an adoption.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm adopting service management, this organization provides guidance. But it can be so much more than that. Because when you really look at it, okay, this is how we do service management. But we have a tool that we use for service management. Now we're going to use that tool for enterprise service management. So HR wants one change made. Office Services wants another change made. Who governs those changes? So that's where I think the Service Management Office can both guide the user experience work that the organization is doing, guide the service management adoption program, process and procedures, and it can also govern how the tool is changed. So they might have separate meetings for those topics, but it can come from the same governing body and certainly should include people outside of IT. And I think that's where you kind of loop it back in. So you're going to bring people that are not in IT into that service management office. Now that breaks down the walls between IT and the rest of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And gives you the ability to do enterprise service management with all the right players in the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the other half of that presentation is recognizing that the service management office is kind of a matrix managed organization because people are going to come from all over. How do you put together a team that's diverse enough to get you what you need? And when I talk about diversity, I'm not talking about diversity in the typical terms, because by now our organization should be diverse.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the different skill sets. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
By now we should be diverse. It's like, by now we should know it's in management. We're not, but we know we should be doing it. So I'm not going there to talk about, make sure you have a diverse team. I'm talking about understand the different skills and how to put them together. And I use the Queen's Gambit, a chess act, basically a chess paradigm, to talk about how you can put together and utilize teams, build highly effective teams by knowing the different personas that exist on a team. You have a king, you have a queen, you have bishops, rooks, pawns. And most important in that whole paradigm, the pawns.
Mm.
We tend to ignore the frontline people, right? But they're going to be the queen someday.
Yeah.
So if you think about leadership and team building in the perspective of chess, if I'm not training my pawns, I'm going to have a very unsuccessful queen.
That's such a good
metaphor. So I'm
metaphor.
pulling together the service management office and how to build the team that's going to run that service management office.
I love it. It makes so much sense. That diversity of thought. I love that concept. I'm speaking on enterprise service management at Service Management World alongside you. And that is one of my points, that you can't look at service management the same way in every department. It's not going to be the same. And it's not even just like understanding operational aspects of HR, or me as a customer of HR. Like, I totally understand my side of HR, but do I have the oversight? Do I have the skills, talent, and perspective to truly consult that organization and involve them in our service management delivery? It's understanding our limits and approaching these topics from a place of humility and understanding. I love it.
And, I just think about it. We go in like IT has all the answers, right? And you just said we don't have all the answers.
We can't. You know?
No, but, sometimes we forget to involve the people that do, because your capabilities with an expert from the HR organization, wherever you're doing your consulting, right? They know it. The ability to listen, hear them, not try to force our processes on them, is a big deal. I mean, there's something in HR called SHRM, and that's like, I look at it as their equivalent of ITSM, right? It's the certification that they get to, based on knowing what they need to know to run HR. So who are we coming in telling them how to do ITIL when they already have best practices? Yes. Facilities. If a light bulb blows, is that really an incident? Or is it a request for service? I don't know. But if we keep saying it has to be an incident, and now we're forcing them to look at 2 cues, and manage work in two different ways because a request might have a different turnaround time than an incident. And we're, making them manage the way we manage. Is that the right thing for facilities?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the answer to that because we went on my last client. We went around and around and around on that because they felt it should be an incident. And I looked at it and I said, well, what's the value of making it an incident? So this is what, as you work in your enterprise service management world, this is what you have to start balancing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a good example too. Like, what if there's a light bulb next door? I mean, you've got redundancy built in. If there's another light bulb, you don't need to replace this one. It's not as timely. It's something that can wait for a little bit even. It's interesting that you bring up the HR best practices. I would love to see if there is such a beast in facilities, in finance. So I've got some research to do. Thank you, Phyllis.
I bet you finance has some.
I'm sure of that, from the general ledger and the, what do they call it?
COBIT. They're going to be concerned with COBIT. And COBIT has a huge overlay with ITIL as well. The control, financial controls.
I'm thinking of general accounting practices.
That too.
GAAP stuff.
That too. They're going to have all of
Yes.
that. So every process and procedure they have is going to be governed by those areas, and it may or may not align with what we would call best practice.
Well, you heard it here first. Stay curious and humble. So, Phyllis, where can people connect with you and learn more?
I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Facebook. All my accounts are usually my name, Phyllis, Drucker or Phyllis Drucker. And then, of course, there's that awesome TikTok channel, which is also, I think Phyllis Drucker ITSM or ITSM Phyllis. I forget what we did. I should know my channel. I'll have to get it over to you, and you can put it in the
You're just the talent. You just show up and provide your wisdom, and we'll subscribe. We'll find you. Or actually, TikTok will suggest it to us. Thank you for joining us on Take It Volume,
Phyllis.
Phyllis.
Thanks so much, Matt. It was great connecting with you again.
And to our audience, thanks for listening to this episode. We've got a bunch more out there, a bunch more coming, so make sure you subscribe to receive an alert when there's new ones. You can also submit specific topics. We're planning out next year's content, so please do get involved. Look on our LinkedIn page. We've got some surveys out there. And speaking of that, if you like the podcast or want to share feedback, please let us know. Leave a review. You know that algorithms will reward us for your interactions. This podcast is brought to you by InvGate, the all-in-one IT service and asset management system that helps organizations with world-class IT support teams. If you're looking for a solution to build your help desk without the headaches of year-long implementations, you will love InvGate. In fact, IT teams from NASA, Toyota, and McDonald's use InvGate to manage requests, automate workflows, and centralize inventory data so they can focus on delivering better service and better experiences. And remember, good service is good business.